Hello, everybody. It's me, Maurice Brown of the Maurice Brown Comedy Hour, and we have a very special guest with us this evening on the show, a comedian that's been the two-time Inspirational Country Music Association Award winner, Comedian of the Year for LOLGCA, which is Living on Laughter Gospel Comedy Association. Spirit of Laughter Award winner. He's appeared in comedy clubs in Maryland, Virginia, D.C., and Florida. He's also been the lead actor at the Virginia State Outdoor Drama for 2 summer seasons. He's gotten involved in independent Christian and family value films as an associate and or executive producer, working with several filmmakers and comedians, including Thor Ramsey, Robert G. Lee, Marty Simpson, and Christopher Sean Shaw, who produced the film Can I Get a Witness Protection, which won Best Comedy at the 2017 International Family Film Festival in Hollywood. Available on DVD at Amazon and eBay. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the program the amazing, talented, and very funny Kenny Cornbread Robinson. What's up, Cornbread?
Hey, I'm doing great, Maurice. Great to be on here with you, and it's good that we can get together. I know you and I have tried to do some shows together in the past, and we know that one's going to come together here somewhere down the road. So looking forward to it, and great to be with you this evening.
Man, that's a privilege to have you here, Kenny. I tell you, you've got a very successful background in comedy. That's no question about that. And I've had the privilege of working with you over the years at the LOLGCA conferences, and those have all been tremendous. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you being on the program. I want to ask you, Kenny, right now, with all this pandemic madness going on and entertainers not being able to perform, we were talking about it before the show, the fact that, it's really tough if you are a comic and this is where you base your living.
Yes.
It's difficult right now. How are you handling the situation right now, entertainment wise?
Well, entertainment wise, I've not. The last show I did a Valentine's Day show at a church down in Hampton Roads, Virginia area. They're actually in Hampton, Virginia, and then 3 weeks later, everybody started canceling all their shows for the rest of the year, and I'm fortunate. God sort of put me in the position that I'm a retired government worker. I've been retired for 10 years now, and
Okay.
I have a successful career as a consultant, which allows me to, between my pension and the consulting work I do, God has opened doors that I can go perform places that's full-time comic can't afford to go. Full-time comic's got to pay, he's got to pay his bills, he's got to pay his mortgage, his car payment, health insurance, and God's just blessed me that all those things are already covered. And so it allows me to go places and do things that the full-time comic can't do. And so I spent a year, as we were talking before the show, before the pandemic, I spent a year in Puerto Rico working there as a consultant to FEMA.
Yeah.
And so when I got home, my wife and grandkids knew that I would probably go back out around the 1st of March or 1st of April to do some more FEMA work down in Florida. But as you know, Florida has had their share of troubles, especially about the 1st of June. The people I work with at the company I work with was prepared to send me back to Florida sometime in July. And then the numbers started spiking again. So Right now that's still on hiatus. So I'm able to got 10 grandkids now, and
Right.
And so they're range in age of 6 months to 12 years old, and
Wow.
They're spread up and down the East Coast, mostly here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. But I got one that's actually coming down tomorrow to spend the week from Baltimore. So looking forward to that.
Awesome stuff, Kenny. I tell you, man, it's great to have a family like that, man. God's really blessing you, that's for sure. There's no question about that. That's a beautiful thing. Kenny, tell us a little bit about the name Cornbread. I found it kind of interesting that there was a little bit of confusion with another guy by the name of Kenny Robinson, an African American Kenny Robinson. I get no resemblance at all, but yeah. So you found that you might make the adjustments yourself. Just tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Sure. Sure. In 2006, I was working for VDOT up in the DC area for VDOT, and decided to take some stand-up comedy classes over at the DC Improv.
Okay.
And Matt Kazan was teaching the classes. And when I first arrived at the class, he said, "Well, the first thing we got to do is change your name." He said there's a very famous, and actually he's a Canadian. He lives in Detroit now, but he's actually Canadian, African Canadian. I don't know what is the right term. We say African American, so I guess you'd say African Canadian.
Well, I guess you could go with Canadian African or African Canadian. Yeah, I guess that would be it.
Anyway, he said there is a Kenny Robinson, and he's already got the www Kenny Robinson website, and he said, I know you mentioned that you want to be a Christian comedian. Well, the other Kenny Robinson is not a Christian comedian, and you wouldn't want people Googling his videos and then have you come speak at their church. So, but now Kenny Robinson, the Canadian, African Canadian comedian,
yeah.
we are friends on Facebook, and he likes my post and I like his post, and I had actually seen him many years ago on Billy Ray Cyrus had a TV show on the PAX network called Doc about this redneck that goes to New York City to be a doctor. And, and Kenny was on the show. He was this panhandling hustler that hustled people in the parking lot of the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was called Jelly Bean. And that goes way back, like 2002. That's about 20 years ago. But anyway, he's a real nice guy. And a very funny guy.
Yeah, I read on that, read up on it a little bit, and he's not a necessarily clean comic, but he's open to all types. I mean, you guys obviously are good friends, so that has nothing to do with anything. It's just the fact that it's what a coincidence, and so therefore, Cornbread the comic.
The way we came up with that was, at the time I was living in a little town in far southwest Virginia called Big Stone Gap, Virginia. And so when Matt Kazam and I were working up my introduction, we came up with this line was that he's from a little town of 5,000 people, only 6 last names. He's inbred, he's corn-fed, he's Kenny Lee. And that just sort of evolved from that into he's inbred, he's corn-fed, he's Cornbread the comic. And so that's how the name came about. And it's actually been quite a blessing to be Cornbread. It sort of gives people an ideal up front of who I am, the type humor I do, sort of a Southern hee-haw, Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy type, redneck, blue collar, white trash kind of guy that, and Cornbread is sort of a combination of all the male relatives. I think all comedians maybe do that. We take all the crazy attributes of our cousins and uncles and grandfathers and all, and that sort of gets incorporated into who we are as comedians.
Yes, it does. And speaking of the comedy aspect of things, as far as making a living on comedy and so forth, virtual comedy is taken over now. We don't have any choice. I mean, we can't get out there and be in front of live audiences. So have you taken to the virtual stand-up world of comedy yet?
I have not. I've done a couple of things with the Inspirational Country Music Association that you talked about earlier. I've done some things with them, but it wasn't necessarily comedy. It was sort of a mixture of comedy slash devotional type things. But it kind of goes with something that God spoke into my heart as I was leaving Puerto Rico. I wasn't really sure what God wanted me to do next, Maurice, and I just really felt a calling, and God was saying there are so many people that grew up in the church,
Okay.
and they still believe in God, they still love God, but they don't go to church.
Okay.
And I was questioning God. I said, well, do you want me to go start another church or a new church or a better church? And he was like, no. He said, we got enough churches. There's one on every corner, especially if you live in the Bible Belt like we do. There's I drive past 17 churches to get to the one that I go to. And
right.
And he said, no, I don't need another church, but I need people that will minister to those believers, those Christians that are still my children, still children of God, still love God, but they haven't lost their faith in God. They've lost their faith in the church.
Okay.
And the church will have to work on getting that back. And what I feel like God is telling me to do is not to get people to quit church or to persuade people not to go back to church, but to be there for them until they do, until they're ready to go back, to be that person that will be sensitive to their needs and visit them in the hospital or call them and pray for them. And I've got a number of people that I do that with. I check in on them, and I mail them books, or I mail them a Bible, or we just get together and we talk. And we don't always talk. It ain't all just talking about this is my interpretation of the book of Acts or anything like that. We talk about golf and grandkids and all the fun things in the world. But there's always something that's on their heart that they want to share, and we pray about it. And God's just opened doors where I've prayed with, believe it or not, actually prayed with the lady that cuts my hair, and she was having to have some arm surgery, and was worried about the surgery coming up, and I could tell, the first time I did it, Maurice, well, it was with the lady that cut my hair at the time. And so as I was getting ready to leave, God just laid it on my heart, and he said, ask her if you can pray for her. And so I did. I said, can I pray for your surgery that's coming up? And you would have thought that I'd give her $1 million. Her face lit up, and she was like, oh, please, please, please. And I just prayed for her there in the beauty saloon, and we don't have to get all religious and pray those King James Version prayers. Oh Lord, my God, how, all that kind of stuff. We just talk to God like I'm talking to you, and just people want us to be real, not to put on our religious Christian mask. And mask is a touchy subject anyway, but we need to we need to be real with people and let people know we love them. God doesn't say they'll know you because you can quote 179 Bible verses. They'll know you by your love.
Right.
And that's what we need to be doing as Christians is as comedians, we make people laugh. I know you've had this happen to you a lot more than any paycheck that I get or love offering that I get. Almost every show I do, as I'm standing in the back shaking hands, I know you hear this yourself, and almost every comedian I talk with hears this. Somebody will come up to you and say, I did a 50-year high school reunion down in North Carolina. The lady came up to me after service. She said, I almost didn't come tonight. My husband passed away 2 weeks ago. Wow. And he'd had cancer for 3 months prior to that. And she said, I have not laughed since we sat with the doctor, and he said that my husband had cancer and just had a few months to live. And
Yeah.
she said, you made me laugh for 45 minutes straight, and I really needed to laugh.
Amen. Praise the
And
Lord.
you get people telling you that stuff. You know what I'm talking about. That means more to you. I mean, yeah, we like to see the check but I try to wait till I get out of the parking lot before I open the envelope. But but that's our real payment, is when people tell us that we made their day better.
Well, I totally agree with you, Kenny. I think that that's really what we have to, performers like ourselves have to. I don't know about you. I have to remind myself a lot of times why I'm doing what I'm doing, not just to take care of family, get the paycheck, all those things, which is clearly a part of why we do what we do. But at the end of the day, it's all for the Lord.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, the number one reason we do what we do is for the Lord, and we're there to make people laugh and make them feel better and make them feel like there's a reason to go on. Sometimes it gets
Right.
that bad for some people, and
Yes.
and you just need to laugh, man. Just let it out. Just laugh, and it can make your troubles go away. And I have to remind myself a lot of times as we get in this business of chasing not only just the almighty dollar, but
Right.
fame and recognition, it's like, wait a minute, stop, wait a minute. This is about the Lord.
Exactly.
And so you have to kind of refocus and always remember those things, and those kind of stories that you shared, it makes you remember,
Right.
why you're
Yeah.
doing this.
Exactly.
And that's when God takes you, to that next level, because he'll leave you on that platform until you remember why you're doing what you're doing.
What you're doing.
Now, son, now you got, okay, we can go up a little bit further now.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, you're right, Kenny. It's no question, man. And those are great stories to hear when people, come up to you and say those things, and it keeps you grounded and rooted. And it's like, okay, let's do this for the reason God put. Kenny, I can't tell you how many times I have to really stop myself and remember that. It's like, hey, this is for the Lord, man. This is for the Lord. And we take joy in doing it for the Lord. It's a privilege and an honor to do this for the Lord, man. It's not like a grudge or anything.
That's right.
But Kenny, so look, tell me about. Oh, by the way, when you're talking about the mask and everything, you kind of briefly alluded to the mask. It's like, people, if they walk around with these masks and they think that if they make eye contact with you, they're going to catch COVID-19.
Yeah.
No, you can say hi. It's okay. You can look.
Just say
We
hi.
can make eye contact. So it's kind of funny, Kenny. But no, the 5,000. Tell us a little bit about where you're from. You said you're from a place that has 5,000 people and 5 last names.
Yeah. I was born in El Paso, Texas. My dad was in the military at the time. He served at White Sands, New Mexico as a guided missile instructor back during the Korean War.
Okay.
And so I was born in Texas, but my parents were from far Southwest Virginia. And so I grew up mostly in and around Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, where they have the NASCAR races.
Yep.
But I went to work for VDOT when I was Virginia Department of Transportation when I was 20 years old. And when I was about, 40, I'm going to guess about 47, 48, I was working over in a little town called Big Stone Gap, Virginia. Okay. And it is a town of 5,000 people. And they don't tell you this, but 1,500 of those are inmates at the maximum security level 5 Walden Ridge Penitentiary. They get to count them in their census, and that gets them additional federal funding. I know I went to church with some of the guards that worked up at the prison, and they had T-shirts of a guard tower, and it had on the little logo said Walden Ridge State Penitentiary. We'll leave the light on for you.
Well, that's an interesting background there, Kenny, to say the least, man. Tell me a little bit about your work with. I had Marty Simpson on the show
Right.
last week, and I also had Robert G. Lee on the show about a month ago. And
Okay.
I was surprised to find out that you've done some film work with those guys. What was it like working with those two guys?
Well, primarily, the work I did was behind the scenes. I was with Marty. I was an executive producer. With Robert G. I was an associate producer, and I worked on probably somewhere between 15 to 20 Christian film projects now, and primarily in the area of fundraising, helping them get the finances to put together. Now, Robert G's was the longest. We started talking. Robert G. Lee and I started talking about this script he had for a movie back in 2012.
Okay.
At the CCA conference in Nashville, and then we
Right.
got more involved with it the next year, 2013, out in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Went out there for CCA, and so I helped put some financial support in behind the thing, and it took 5 years because when you're a Christian trying to put together $100,000 worth of funding to rent the cameras, rent the lighting, the microphones.
Mm-hmm.
Robert has worked in Los Angeles for 40 some years on a lot of different TV shows as a warm-up comedian. I'm sure he probably told you a little bit about that.
Yes.
When you interviewed him. And so Robert's made friends out in LA, and a lot of those friendships wound up people that would do the music score or work on the graphics or work on the editing, but they were donating their time. So, Robert would have to get this part done before it could go to the next person that was volunteering their time. And so it took about 5 years before the film was able to be completed and released out to Amazon and other. It went, it didn't go to the movie theaters. It went straight to DVD.
Okay.
But he entered it in a number of film festivals, and it won several awards for best comedy. I don't know if he talked a whole lot on the show about the film, but it was a funny film, you sort of think like Sister Act. It was in that vein.
Yeah.
Of the person that knows nothing at all about Christianity, being put in a witness protection program and being a youth leader at a Presbyterian church in California. But it turned out to be a good film, and it was fun to work on. Yeah,
I actually had a chance to, as you can see behind me right here, I was in the film Love Different in 2016 with Jen Gottson and Tommy Ford from the TV show Martin. You remember back in the day?
Yes,
the next door neighbors never had a job. Have you ever met Tommy?
I have not.
So I had a chance to do that film. I had a fairly significant role in that film, which can be purchased on PureFlix or Amazon Prime.
I have a PureFlix subscription. I'll look it up. Tell me the name again.
Love Different.
Love Different. I will look it up. I'll put it on my watch list.
It's a very funny. You know what? It's a very funny movie. It's really funny, and it's got a very powerful meaning. The centerpiece of the film is very serious, but it is just draped in a lot of humor. Matter of fact, it's about black and white. It's so much about the differences between black and white. It's hilarious, but it's check it out, Kenny. You'll like it a lot. You love it, man. It's really funny. But and believe it or not, as much as I'm trying to joke and kid around, I'm in a very serious role in that film. It's really a good film. I'm one of the few people in there that's like, it's like, oh man, it's serious. But and speaking of that, though, Kenny, in light of what's happening in America right now, and you were a former minister, a deacon, and you may be currently a minister still, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Kenny.
Okay, I'm not right now. I'm working on my ordination to be I'm working actually on my chaplain
Okay.
ordination to so I can do weddings. I've done funerals, and I'm working on my chaplain ordination so I can do weddings. Yeah.
So I want to get a man of God perspective on the next question I'm about to ask you in light of the social and racial climate in America right now regarding George Floyd and
Right.
the unrest that has occurred not only in America, but the whole world is actually
It is.
appalled with what is going on with law enforcement and so
Right.
forth. Uh, do you think all of this could lead to a positive, effective change, Kenny?
I think it can, Maurice, but we've got to get the cooler heads to prevail.
Yes.
I think it's back like, during, when Dr. King, I think Dr. King did more to change the world than anyone in the last century as far as racial relations and everything.
100%.
And
100%.
and Dr. King was the coolest head at the table, and I'm not African American. I can empathize, but I can't really realize what it means to be an African American in America. But Dr. King understood that people won't hear you if you're screaming at them.
That's true.
And
Very true.
and Dr. King understood that change will come, and it has come. I mean, I really don't believe even Dr. King realized that within less than 50 years of his "I Have a Dream" speech that we would have an African American president.
No,
I think he would have been surprised.
he would have been surprised and delightfully pleased,
Absolutely.
beyond belief, if he had the opportunity to see such a thing take place. But I
Right.
will tell you this, Kenny, as an African American, but as a believer in Christ first.
Yeah.
I had Cameron Arnett on the show 2 weeks ago. Are you familiar with Cameron Arnett?
I'm not.
He was in the film I Still Believe, and have you seen the film
Okay, I've
Overcomer?
seen the film. Yeah, I know the film. Yes.
Have you seen Overcomer?
I have seen Overcomer. Loved. I met Alex Kendrick from Overcomer down at the Dove Awards a couple years ago. Very nice guy.
And so Thomas Hill, the character Thomas Hill, who was the blind gentleman, that's
Yeah.
Cameron Arnett.
Okay, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
So Cameron and I were talking on the show a couple of weeks ago about, how we don't want, and I love what you just said about Dr. King. This is why I'm about to say what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
As African Americans, we have to remember that our faith is first.
Uh-huh.
And so we do support, and I do support the Black Lives Matter movement. I do support everything that is happening right now regarding racial relations right now in America as an African American. At the same time, I don't want to allow my flesh to take control of how I approach the matter.
Correct.
And as you mentioned, Dr. King being the coolest head of the table, John Lewis, who passed away recently, was taken across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was a great symbolic thing to witness because he stood for peace. He never laid a hand on anyone.
Right.
And there's the cooler heads, getting back to what you said before, have to prevail. Martin Luther King Jr. is the best example that you will ever see in response to injustice.
Yes.
Jesus Christ has said, and we like to gloss over the statement that Christ made a lot, and we almost like to pretend like he never said it. Turn the other cheek.
Yeah. No, we don't.
I mean,
I understand.
we
that's
want to
hit
the
back.
church.
Yes.
The church, we as followers of Christ, we like to kind of act as though he didn't say that.
Yeah. We tend to quote the stuff that agrees with our philosophy at the time.
Yes. Well, he said that. And
Yes.
Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis are two of the greatest examples you'll ever see of what Jesus Christ said.
Yes.
And so we just have to keep that in mind. And sometimes when I'm speaking to my African American brethren, they don't like that. I mean, wait a minute, man, hold on, dude. But you got wait a minute. You got to understand it. The only thing I understand is what Christ said.
Right.
And then after that, hey, dude, I'm with you. We just so we don't want to get things confused. Is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Just to kind of piggyback on what you said about. And it was a beautiful statement you made, and it was an accurate statement you made. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the coolest head at the table, and he is an example of Christ-like love as he died in the effort of peace without laying a hand on anyone. So
Right.
that's what has to be remembered in all of this, Kenny. And I just love the fact that you made that very clear as you were talking about it.
Well, I think history shows when we look at the protest that Martin Luther King led, we see who the aggressors were. It was the Alabama state troopers and their police dogs and the water cannons and all that. We see clearly who was the villain in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that we're gonna change people when people I don't think there's any sensible person. There may be people, but there's no sensible person that could watch the Floyd video of him being choked to death on camera. There's no rational person, no sensible person that can think that there was any justification I mean, it was just murder. And I don't think that there's any question about it. I don't know how they could find 12 people to sit on a jury. They don't have to find 12 people that never saw the film, because
you would have
to. Once you see it, you couldn't not be affected by it.
Exactly. It's actually an open and shut case. In my opinion, we have to go through the legal system. There's a form, a pattern that we must go by, but it's an open and shut case. And I totally agree with you. I don't think anyone in their right mind could view that and not walk away from it understanding what happened.
Not only what happened, but what needs to be changed. That we cannot continue to allow that to happen. It just can't be allowed to continue. And I think all people, reasonable, rational people, can agree on that.
Well, and I just, from a man of God perspective, I just wanted to kind of get your commentary on that real briefly. I don't want to dive in too deep with the scuba gear on it, but it's a pertinent,
No, I've got family members that are in law enforcement, and actually, believe it or not, week before last, I was talking with one who's a retired state trooper in Virginia, and he was like, he couldn't believe that the other 3 police officers just stood by and watched it. He said, if he had been there, he would have had to, arrest, he would have had to stop it. They're just, he couldn't stand by and just do nothing.
Right.
And I think, that, I think that they're all guilty. The three are guilty of doing nothing, and one's guilty of doing something and doing something very wrong.
100%, Kenny, 100%. And I appreciate you commenting on that. I want to get back to a little bit of comedy and ask you, a lot of people talk about heckling and so forth. I got one for you. Have you ever had a heckler in church, Kenny?
I have been fortunate to not have a heckler in church. I've been blessed. And that's actually one of the things that I picked up on early when I started doing, after I took my comedy classes up in the DC area. One of the things Matt told me was, he said, Kenny, you're good. You're a funny comedian, but before you're good enough that people are going to plop down money to buy tickets, you need to do 150 to 200 shows. He said it takes 150 to 200 shows, meaning open mics, showcases, anywhere you can get up on stage to get good enough that then people are going to pull money out of their pocket and buy a ticket to see you.
Wow.
And so I started hitting. This was back in 2006, 2007, 2008. I was working up in your area. I was on the negotiation team for the hot lanes around the 495 beltway for VDOT. And so if I don't remember exactly right, but it was something along this line. Monday night, I was out at Tyson's Corner doing Wiseacres. Tuesday night, I was in DC doing open mic at the Topaz Hotel. Wednesday night, I was over in Arlington doing Dr. Dreamo's Draft House.
Okay.
Thursday night, I was somewhere else. I don't remember where.
Yeah.
And I did that for 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. I was knocking out 3 or 4 open mics. There was a place up in Bethesda on Saturday nights, Laugh Riot at the Hyatt. Just anywhere I could get time on stage. I was, and I know you've done that bit too, because I see you every week. You're out there putting in your time on stage to further your craft and and get better at what you do. And so
yes,
but that's you got to pay your dues, and
you got to pay your dues, Kenny. And I've done mine on the long-term plan, just because of the way my life is structured and just family and so forth. So over a 7-year period, because I've been around it for 10, but I only count 7 because that's when I really started going out every week, once a week, maybe twice a week, but for about 7 years. Long story short, you're right. You got to get your reps in. You got to get as much stage time as you can get, so you can see the full gamut of what this craft is all about. You got different crowds, different types of audiences. You've got different age groups. You've got different moods of crowds. You've got crowds that don't like certain types of material where other crowds do. There's so many things that you have to learn. Are you familiar with Brad Stein?
I am. I've met Brad on 2 occasions. He probably don't remember me, but I met him in Nashville, and then I met him another time in Atlanta, both at CCA conferences. And I remember when he used to do all the videos, the one about the hard hat and different ones. So I remember, I've saw him a number of times on TV before I ever met him in person.
Brad Stein and I did a show about 10 years ago. I invited him to come headline a show I produced. And he didn't know I was black. He got off the plane and he saw me and he went, "You're black." Yeah, I said, "Brad, I've been black a long time, dude." So we came prepared to do a show for a white Republican audience.
Right.
Out there at Cornbread, and everybody in the place was black, man. I mean, black Democratic crowd. He came in there, man, and he started bombing for the first minute and a half. He was just bombing, right? And then he stopped and he looked around and he just changed set and he killed for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just killed. And I was just amazed. And afterwards, he told me, he said, "Maurice, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've seen it all."
Right.
But that's the benefit of stage time.
Stage time. Exactly right.
Yeah. Exactly. And I saw it firsthand. I could not believe that I witnessed that.
How quickly he was able to adapt and go a completely different direction.
And he just destroyed. I mean, they loved him.
Sure.
So yeah, but that's just to piggyback on what you said about you got to get the stage time. You got to get the stage time. What's your worst bombing experience on stage, Kenny?
My worst one was at a Irish pub out in Sterling, Virginia. And what it was there was going to be it was at the pub was going to have a dance that began at 9 o'clock. And so to kill the time from the time people started arriving at 8, they decided to have, there were five of us comedians, each doing about 12 to 15 minutes apiece from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And I was the last one. I was the headliner. I was the last guy going on before the dancing would start.
Okay.
And everybody in front of me was bombing. And
wow.
and this was still when I was in my younger and more cockier days, probably 2007.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking, I always kill. You know, I've never bombed. And so when these guys get done, they're going to put me up there, and I'm going to bring this audience to its knees laughing. And yes. I got up to do the last 15 minutes, and I'm the last 15 minutes between all these people there to dance.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was, nobody's paying any attention. Everybody's just waiting for me to finish up so that they can get the stool and the microphone off stage and let the DJ turn loose.
Yeah.
And when I came off stage, the guy who was the owner of the club, he came over and he said, "It wasn't you." He said, "You're very funny. I thought you were great." He said, "But they didn't come tonight to see comedy. This was an experiment. We thought that this would help people, have something to do while they're waiting." And he said, "They're not here for laughter. They're here to hook up and have fun. And they didn't come for a comedy show." So, that was two things. It taught me, be careful about what jobs you accept.
Yes.
There's some places that are just not right for comedy, certain events. And then also it gave me a great lesson in humility that I wasn't all that in a bag of chips, that, everybody bombs. And I've seen comedians that are much better than me that I've opened for, and I've had a great set, and then they come on and they bomb. And the first time it happened that the person come on me, I think it's maybe good that I had bombed, because then the guy that was headlining the night that night and he bombed.
Yes.
I knew exactly how he felt, and that was the first time he'd ever bombed.
Okay.
And this was at a comedy show.
Wow.
And this was at a pure comedy show. And he was supposed to do 45 minutes, and he cut out at 22 because it was just so bad.
Well,
and
yeah.
And
what do you think happened, Kenny? What do you think caused it?
I do not know, because I'd seen him other times, and he's funny, and he always works crowd, and he was just crushed. I mean, he was just crushed. And I was able to be empathetic and tell him, hey, it happens to all of us. If it hasn't happened to you, it will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But one night you will bomb, and it just don't work. And you use all your best stuff, and it just don't work. And and when that happens, it's the worst feeling in the world when you're just you and the microphone up there, and the audience is not at all getting what you're trying to do. It's worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, it is. I was just trying to understand what happened to him, because usually a comedy show, people come to laugh.
It builds to a crescendo. It keeps getting better and better as you go. That's another lesson. Just when you think you've got it figured out, you don't. Yeah, sometimes you get took down a notch, and you start all over again. But one thing I've learned, and you probably have too, is that a lot of comedians feel like they've got to have a different set, every 6 months or every year or every 2 years. And what I focus on, Maurice, is I've got my basic 30 jokes that I know will always work. And when I get new material, the new material is worked into those routines.
Right.
Because as well as I do, you don't want to do set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. You want to do set up, punchline, 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 punchline. As long as you can ride that horse. If you can hit 5 punchlines on one setup, a lot better than doing 5 setups and 5 punchlines.
Yeah.
Because you get on a roll. And when you get them rolling like that, you get one setup and you get 4 or 5 punchlines. So when I develop new material, I'm always looking for a way to work it into something that I've already got.
Yeah.
That it becomes the 3rd or 4th laugh within that setup and joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it doesn't have to have a long setup, for one payoff.
No, and so just trying to understand the mechanics of it, but yeah, you kind of understand. Okay, there are jobs that you don't take, like you said. They're just set up for failure out there that you learn over time. Like, oh no, I'm not taking that gig. So because you already know what's probably doesn't matter how funny you are. It's got nothing to do with your ability. These people came here with something on their mind, or they got something on their mind. It's not personal, but they thinking about you. And so you have to be able to kind of recognize those things. Number one, go to a place where the folks have come with the dedicated attitude to laugh.
Exactly.
And just kind of look at it from that standpoint. So no, that's something that I have definitely learned over the years, Kenny. Tell me a little bit about your association with executive producing as far as films go.
Well, a little bit like I told you there earlier with Marty and Robert G. Lee. It's really more what I've done to this point with films has been primarily in the financial area, helping them get the funding, helping them find sponsors. Me donating my own funds, investing in the projects. So that that the projects can move forward, because the secular world, they don't have as hard. Well, I guess they do. I was going to say they don't have as hard a time as Christians, but in the Christian world, you've got a certain amount of funding. As the Christians in a church have a certain amount of funding, and some of that funding goes to pay the pastor's salary. Some of that funding goes to fund overseas missions. Some of that funding goes to, feed the homeless, et cetera, et cetera. And within that funding that Christian believers have to donate, up until just recently, it was a very small piece of the pie got spent on entertainment, on Christian entertainment. And usually and when it was usually spent on Christian music, whether it's black gospel or contemporary Christian or Southern gospel, that's where Christians spent their entertainment dollars. And quite frankly, most believers and Christians spend their entertainment dollars in a secular venue. And so, if we're going to have quality Christian entertainment, it requires that people put their money where their belief is, instead of where their mouth is. Put it where their belief is. I don't know if you've seen the miniseries out now, The Chosen, that was done by Dallas Jenkins.
I've heard about it. I have not seen it.
It is maybe the best Christian entertainment project that's ever been done. And a lot of people think that the word Christian entertainment is a dirty word, that if it's not ministry, then you have to use the code word that is Christian ministry. No, it's Christian entertainment. Now, Christian entertainment will inspire you, just like with Overcomer, just like with War Room, just like with God Is Not Dead. All those they're Christian entertainment, but they have a message. Yes, they have a ministry, but Christians will spend their money, in a whole lot of secular venues and not spend their money in Christian entertainment. And so as an executive producer, it's convincing people to invest their money in so that we can put out a quality Christian entertainment product. And like I say, The Chosen, you can download the app, you can watch it on Roku or PureFlix, and it's written by the show is written and directed and produced by a guy by the name of Dallas Jenkins, and he's most famous by his father. His father was Jerry Jenkins, that co-wrote the Left Behind series that 25 years ago everybody was reading those books about the rapture and the Antichrist and all that.
Yeah.
And it was Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. Well, this is Jerry Jenkins' son. Dallas has put together this series, and he's worked on a lot of those other Christian projects like War Room and some of those. So he really they're filming they're getting ready to film season 2. They had eight episodes in season 1, and his goal is that over 10 years that he will cover most of the New Testament, and his long range goal is to have 10 seasons. That it'll be 10 seasons of The Chosen, and it really good actors, good scripts, good storyline, good character development, and so when I work as a producer, that's primarily where I work at, is trying to raise awareness for the funding and all that it takes to put a film together.
Well, as you speak about Christian faith-based films, just a program note for tomorrow. You got Jen Gotzon, who I asked you about whether or not you were familiar with Jen or not, but Jen is going to be on the show tomorrow at 12 noon. She's in a film called The Farmer and the Bell, but she was in Frost Nixon in 2008, and then I did Love Different with her in 2016. Okay. And then I got Leland Klassen on tomorrow, who's in the new film called Sleeper Agent. I don't know if you've ever met Leland or not, but he's
I have met Leland on a couple of occasions, and I haven't seen Sleeper Agent, but I'll put a plug in for his other film, Extraordinary.
Yes, you did that. Yeah.
I loved. I watched it for the second time last weekend with two of my grandkids, and my second oldest grandson was so inspired. He's like, "Dad, I want to run like that. I want to run around. I don't want to run just around or he calls me Poppy. He said, Poppy, I don't want to just run across America. I want to run around the whole world. I want to run across every continent." And
yes,
it's a great inspirational film. And of course, based on a true story, of the professor that teaches only about an hour south of me down at Liberty University.
Yes, and Jen was also in that film with Leland in Extraordinary. So, and okay. as I mentioned those two, and as you were talking about Chosen and the faith-based entertainment industry, a lot of people sometimes look at it as a dirty word. Almost, it's kind of funny. But do you think that the faith-based film industry is starting to get the attention of the secular audiences?
It is, and I tell you, not just Christians, but people that are wanting to have entertainment that they can watch with the whole family and the parents not be embarrassed. There was a real good Christian film put out a few years ago, about the same time as Extraordinary, I think in 2017, called Mountaintop.
Okay.
And I highly recommend it. There's a couple of different films with that name, Mountaintop, but this one takes place down in North Carolina, down around Asheville, somewhere down in that area, and it's a legal drama, sort of something like a John Grisham type novel, and almost all the actors that were in it were secular actors, and it was put together by non-faith-based movie theater, or movie company, but put together a great faith film called Mountaintop, and just more and more, I think people are seeing that there needs to be alternatives to just shoot them up, Rambo, blow it up, how many cars can you blow up? How many bridges can fall down? What kind of natural disaster is going to destroy the world or whatever. So I think there's definitely a place for family and faith-based entertainment.
Yeah, and I think that the content of faith-based films is presented in such a way that it has been difficult for secular audiences to accept just on the believability scale.
Right.
But I think that it's getting better. The
better.
films are getting better, and Cameron Arnett alerted me to something that I did not consider, and that's the fact that the budgets for faith-based films falls way short of a Hollywood film.
Correct. 1/10.
Yeah, and that makes it very difficult to produce the kind of content that will get secular audiences on the so-called believability train.
Correct.
but that has to improve. The budgets for the faith-based film industry has to get better. What do you think the chances of that getting markedly better in the near future, Kenny?
Well, I think that it's going to require, with The Chosen, they raised $10 million on a GoFundMe account from 17,000 contributors.
Wow.
To put together the $10 million that was needed for their first 8 episodes.
Okay, man. That's hugely impressive.
So it requires some creativity. It requires some creativity, but the Kendrick brothers that did Overcomer, Wardrobe, Facing the Giants, they've shown that they can make a movie for 5 to 10 million, release it to the box office, and make 35 to 50 million. Well, now that doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but when you figure that Star Wars costs them $300 million to make, or Avengers costs $1 billion to make.
Wow.
They've got to sell a lot of tickets to get that $1 billion back before they make any profit.
Yeah.
And so, if the faith-based industry can continue to put out some quality films that are on the 5 to 10 to $15 million budgets, that can hit the theaters, that Christians will go out and support them, that they'll make the top 10 list for movies that open that weekend, and they bring in, if they make it for 15 and they bring in 50, they make it for 5, they bring in 25, they're making 20 million profit. That's going to continue to then up the game that every future Christian project can see that ability to persuade investors. Hey, invest in our movie, and not only are you investing in a faith-based entertainment, but there's a good chance that you'll get a profit on your investment. And not all of us do things for the glory of the kingdom. Some people that go to church do it to make a buck, and God can use those people too. God used God used Pharaoh to put Joseph over Egypt. God used Nebuchadnezzar to bring Daniel back out of the lion's den and put him over the kingdom. And God can use some greedy people to help faith-based films be successful.
Well, God uses greedy people all the time to do His bidding. They don't have any idea, but God does His thing, man. One way or the other, God's gonna do His thing, Kenny. But dude, I want to thank you for being on the show. This has been a great conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Cornbread, the comic, Kenny Lee Robinson. If you want to follow him, you can see on the streaming bottom there, cornbreadthecomic.com. Kenny, thanks for being on the show, man. Hopefully down the road we can hook up again.
All right. Thank you so much, Maurice.
God bless you, man. May the peace of Christ be with you and your family, man. God bless.
Blessings to you.